If you're a missionary, you know that the greatest way you can communicate with your patrons and prayer supporters is through a newsletter. What we used to only be able to send infrequently through the postal service, now we can send digitally as often as we'd like. Missionary newsletters nowadays give patrons the ability to see the work they are giving to and the missionaries they are supporting in a way we have never been able to do in the history of sending missionaries. That's why we created this video with 9 tips to help enhance your missionary newsletter. Now let's get started. Tip number 1 is to start a newsletter. Whenever I meet with people to talk about how they can enhance their missionary fundraising strategy, probably one of the first questions I ask is, do you have a newsletter? That's one of the first things I'll encourage them to do whenever they start their missionary fundraising journey. I'm not talking about emailing a ton of people or sending actual letters out through the postal service, but do you use an email marketing software? This could be MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, something like this that helps you reach a large amount of people a lot more efficiently. It's way easier and more efficient to use a software like that as opposed to sending emails just through your average Gmail or iCloud account. The second step is to be consistent. Consistency is incredibly important. I learned this not only as a missionary fundraising support, but also now as a digital marketer. This absolutely speaks to the frequency. Be consistent in how often you send emails. But I'm also talking about the time at which you send emails. Sending email newsletters the same time each week or every other week, or how often you do it, helps to build anticipation, expectation, and excitement around hearing how they can pray for you and hearing updates from your ministry. The third step is to incorporate visuals. We live in an incredibly visual world. In my marketing work, one of the goals we try to do is make everything as visual as possible, from social media posts to newsletters to ads to website design. Everything is incredibly visual. This is also very important for your newsletter. You need to put time and effort into making the newsletter as visual as possible. Take time designing your newsletter and often think about how you can incorporate new digital content as often as possible. Tip number 4 is to be creative. Through our time sending a newsletter, we often would change ideas and incorporate new things along the way. One idea we had was we created a graphic with 100 boxes numbered from 1 to 100. And as we were beginning our fundraising, people could choose the number of box which represented the amount of money they wanted to give and support each month. Tip number 5 is to always share prayer requests. In missionary fundraising, it's incredibly important to frequently communicate with your patrons and prayer supporters. Traditionally, newsletters have been sent very infrequently. Sending newsletters 4 times a year doesn't keep patrons updated well on how they can pray for you regularly. When we sent our newsletter, one of the things that people loved the most was how we would put bullet pointed prayer requests at the bottom of each newsletter so that they could clearly know how we need prayer. Tip number 6 is to get feedback. Sending a missionary newsletter every week can definitely be hard. Some weeks there's plenty to talk about, and some weeks it was a pretty slow week if we're honest. We served in Asia, so it was really easy to talk about the culture that we were serving in compared to the culture that our patrons lived in. If you begin to have slow weeks where it's hard to talk about what you did that week in a newsletter, I'd encourage you to ask some of your patrons and people on your newsletter what they want to hear from you. Maybe they want to know about where you live. Maybe they want to see what your week looks like, what your ministry looks like more specifically in your day-to-day life. Ask what they want to see, ask what they like seeing, and what they may want to see more of. Tip number 7 is to look at the data. Another perk of using an email marketing software is you have the ability to look at the data. You can see how many people open the email. You can see maybe what links in the email they clicked. You can even see who opened the email. When you have access to this data, you can make adjustments to your email based off of what you see triggers more people to open and read the email or click on links. It could be something as small as when you put an emoji in the subject line, 5% more people open the newsletter. Tip number 8 is to dedicate time. Oftentimes people say they don't have enough time for fundraising. And when I hear that, I tend to push back. When we look at our schedules, we most likely have a lot more time than we think we do. We tend to not realize how much we can give to something like that. But we also tend to neglect how important it is to the work you're doing. When working on a newsletter, the more time you can dedicate up front, the easier it becomes each week. It will absolutely be worth it in the end because it will help you retain patrons for longer. And tip number 9 is to plan ahead. As a missionary, your schedule can often be unpredictable. When we were overseas, we had to leave the country every 60 days because of our visa. Often the trips fell on days when we would send the newsletter or write the newsletter. This could have easily become an excuse to skip some of our newsletters. But another perk of using an email marketing software is that you can schedule newsletters weeks or months in advance. This helps you to keep consistency, which again is extremely important. I hope you enjoyed this video and that these tips helped you to enhance your missionary newsletter. If you're looking for more tips to help you on your missionary fundraising journey, then head over to our website, schoolmission.net, where we release articles and videos each week. Also, check out our course, Modern Fundraising for Missionaries. In the course, we cover tons of topics from how to utilize digital content and even how to navigate relationships as you're fundraising on your missionary journey. These links will be in the description below. As always, thanks for watching and hope you have a great day.